Hi guys, I'm back after some days. I was busy at school, but now I'm back. I'm also gonna have a break, because out there are some sort of, I don't know, holidays. So yeah, that's cool, I guess. Today we're gonna be looking at a scenario, where Syria will form an empire. Now, before going into that, I'm gonna talk, about the whole CADC thing. I already, my family already bought the tickets. I'll go to the cinema at the June 4th. I'm really looking forward to that. And now, like, seriously, I don't know what I could make of TDC. Like, seriously, what I can make of TDC. Like, I'm not an expert of making edits yet. I don't know. I could try, like, learn how to make edits like I don't know, I could show some of the merch I am, maybe some of the merch I like to get in the future. Like I don't know, give me ideas about what I could do about TDC. I really did a video about episode 9 theories. Like I don't want to seem repetitive. Like seriously, like honestly, and I don't want to like do a video about TDC where I just simply go and watch other stuff about TDC. I want to try to do something that is that's about me when it comes to TDC. So I really okay. What was that? Okay, so I really don't know what I could do about TDC. I'll try to see, but like, if you could give me any suggestions, for anyone that's watching this video that is a TDC fan, please give me any suggestions about what I could do about TDC. Like, I seriously don't know what I could do. Like, drawing, I do that sometimes, but it's not a thing I do often. So, yeah, like, a thing about TDC that, like, I'll do often, or at least like quite sometimes. So yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know. But anyway, we're gonna start this video since this video isn't about TDC. It's about Syria for my main part now. Syria is obviously the empire here will be shown, in red. You know. Anyways, Syria, it's a pretty interesting country. When it comes to the mapping community, this country just tends to get bullied a lot, especially by you know this guy here, Turkey. Mm, and also this guy, but we don't talk about this. Yeah, so Syria doesn't always, receive fair treatment in mapping scenarios, in war scenarios, in the mapping community in general. Syria just simply ends up like losing a lot of land or even getting partition and ceasing to exist. So yeah, I mean, go figure. Syria, it's a pretty weak country. They had the civil war. They're still trying to recover from that. So yeah, no wonder that Syria, in most cases, is not really able to like receive a happy ending in mapping scenarios, in mapping videos. But today we're gonna actually having Syria actually becoming glorious. They're gonna take a lot of like this is like a revenge for all the times Syria has been bullied in mapping videos. So yeah, this is gonna be great. I can already tell it. So yeah, so first of all, Syria they're gonna begin to rebuild, recover from the civil war. And from there, I think to like ramp up their economy, ramp up their military. I don't know for which countries they'll be getting aid from. Maybe like from both Western countries and Eastern countries. Like I don't know, the current Syrian government, it's interesting. Yeah, but we're gonna see if Syria will actually end up, like becoming an ally. I don't know if some Western aligned countries here in the area or if it will become like an ally of Russia and Iran. It's gonna be interesting. So obviously Syria, they're gonna get a huge military, a huge economy. So yeah, so Syria is gonna be, buffed. That's just to make it more interesting. So this way, can take out some certain countries that will not be able to take out in real life. So, anyways, what's the first task of this Syrian Empire? Well, they're actually gonna invade Lebanon now. This already is gonna set off bad relations with countries like Iran, because there's Hezbollah. Hezbollah is Iranian aligned. Now, the Lebanese government itself is not Iranian aligned, but Hezbollah does have an influence over Lebanon. And as I said before, Hezbollah is aligned with Iran. So yeah, Iran is gonna get angry by this. And it's not just mm, Iran is gonna get angry by this, but ironically not. Also, Israel is gonna get angry by this. So Israel they're gonna join the war on their own side. And yeah, the Israeli leader they said it like one like 10% of Lebanon, like southern Lebanon, in order to like get a buffer between Hezbollah and Israel. The Israeli leader, it's interesting, just like the current American leader. Yeah, they make some really interesting statements, and that's just putting it lightly. But nonetheless, Israel will get southern Lebanon secure, while the rest will go over to Syria, including the capital Beirut. Beirut, is that how you pronounce it? I'm usually good at English, so maybe, yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. But anyways, now let's go and take a look at this peace treaty. And in this peace treaty, it's gonna be simple. We are basically, gonna be having Lebanon getting partition. So the southern portion will go over to Israel, while all the rest will go over to Syria. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what Israel will do about Israel, but we're not to that point yet, because Israel is a pretty strong country, so it's gonna be hard to take them out. But for now, Syria, they will get most of Lebanon. This will already, like benefit them a lot, because they have now more coast on the Mediterranean Sea, so that means they can do more easy trade, towards like North Africa or even Europe. Yeah, technically you could also, have easier trade, with mm, you know the US. So I think there's that as well. Anyways, now what can Syria do? Well, they're actually gonna go ahead and invade Cyprus. This is gonna anger both Greece and Turkey, but Syria, they don't care. So yeah, Cyprus will be taken over, and from here, Cyprus will be fully annexed into Syria. And this once again is gonna benefit them even more because now they have an island, they can use it, for like to launch multiple attacks, in certain areas, if they wanted to. So yeah, with Syria currently antagonizing, well, basically Syria is basically antagonizing both the east and the west for now. But I think they may actually begin antagonizing more the west, after Syria does that. Now, Jordan, it's a pretty interesting country, like they're kind of all over the place, but more leaning, towards the west. But the Jordan itself is fairly neutral. So yeah, this is gonna be seen as a violation of neutrality. But yeah, Syria, they don't care. Now, obviously, we're also gonna, have to make this a little bit unrealistic, because if this were like realistic, like a lot of countries will already intervene against Syria. So yeah, we have to like obviously Syria is not gonna be, it's not gonna just gonna conquer land, and be and without any opposition. There's gonna be some opposition, I guess, but for now there isn't, So yeah, Jordan's capital is taken over, and yeah, Jordan is gonna fall. Anyways, what can we do with Jordan? You know what? It's actually gonna be fully annexed into Syria. So yeah, Syria now they actually have a new access. Jordan does have like a really small access to the Red Sea. So yes, this is probably gonna increase their trade like with probably Saudi Arabia, Yemen, the Horn of Africa, and technically also with India, Pakistan, and technically also with China. You go to the Strait of Malacca, and then you go to China, Korea, Japan. So yeah, Syria they are opening new trade routes for themselves. Yeah, but now Israel is like, pretty scared, and they're probably gonna like take their fear and just throw it into. Yeah, we're not gonna be considering that. Anyways, now Syria is gonna like balance, the whole thing that they're, the whole antagonizing thing. They've been antagonizing West. Well, now they're actually gonna re-antagonize the East. I mean, sort of. I mean, yeah, they declare war in Iraq, but you see, Iraq itself, is a fairly neutral country, so maybe this is still gonna be antagonized both the West and the East. But Iraq, if Jordan was like neutral but leaning towards West, Iraq is neutral but like leaning towards the East, and that's just because of the history they had with a certain body over here. Anyways, Syria, they're gonna begin invading into parts here of Iraq, but you know what? We are actually gonna be having other countries intervening into this, such as Turkey. We're also gonna be having Saudi Arabia intervening into this, and we're also gonna be having Iran joining in this. So yeah, this has become more of like uh, uh an Iraqi bang. Like everybody's just invading Iraq. Anyways, yeah, Saudi troops, they're gonna begin pouring from this area. Meanwhile, Iranian troops are gonna pour in from this area and try like going like towards Baghdad. Yeah, Turkish forces, I mean, maybe something like that, but we'll see how this works. Anyways, Syria, they're gonna like try to take as much as can, but eventually they stop, because they can't really do anything about it anymore. Iran will take over Baghdad. Mm, and from here, I guess, the Saudis will also try to take a little bit more of land, but nonetheless, they're gonna start, the rest will go over to Iran. So yeah, Iraq has been successfully partitioned and destroyed for the 100th time in history. So yeah, let's go and take a look at this peace treaty. Now, first of all, Saudi Arabia, they're gonna like get land like that. Turkey, they're probably just simply gonna like take the course here. Yeah, I don't know if that's a great idea. Syria is actually gonna take over this end here, and the rest will go over to Iran. So yeah, let's roaming these borders. I think that the country that benefited the most from this was definitely Iran because they got the most valuable area of Iraq. So yeah, and yeah. Anyways, but Syria nonetheless will still get an important piece of Iraq, and that's basically Western Iraq. So yeah, they're gonna be getting all this land here. And yeah, Syria, they're doing great, because they've been spending their empire even more. So yeah, it's Syria at this point they're probably a pretty strong country in the Middle East. I'm not sure if stronger than Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Definitely not stronger than Iran, but they are at this point they're basically on par with Israel or the point of surpassing Israel. So yeah, I'm not sure if Israel is really liking that. Anyways, now Syria they're gonna hop over here and they're gonna actually go more in the center slash West Mediterranean and they're gonna take over Malta. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if Italy, like Western Europe, are gonna have something to say about that. Yeah, but it's not over yet because now actually Syria they're gonna attack Tunisia now. I mean, Tunisia, they're like a non-NATO US ally, but I mean, considering the current administration in the US, like, I'm not really sure because I mean, the US itself is like, doing work with Syria, so yeah, I don't really know. Like, Tunisia is like, neutral like Jordan, but like, I'll say that Tunisia like is neutral, but even more leaning towards the West than, Jordan is, so yeah, anyways, yeah. Now, Tunisia is probably the strongest country that Syria has fought on so far. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Now Syria they're gonna make a landing here. They're also gonna make a landing here. Here they do have a lot of success, but they actually get pushed back on this area here of Tunisia, because Tunisia they want to protect their capital. So Syria, they're gonna use Malta, and they're basically gonna launch an invasion on this area here. Tunisia will be able to wipe these out. They're also gonna try to wipe these out, but in exchange, Syria forces are gonna go here and they're gonna cut Tunisia into two pieces. At this point, this in invasion begins going towards the capital of Tunisia, Tunis. So yeah, Tunisia they're gonna focus a lot of forces on pushing this back, and this will basically result in basically all of southern Tunisia falling. So yeah, I mean this is just gonna be filling, and yeah, at this point, Tunisia is fighting a two-front war, which is never a great thing. And eventually Tunis will be surrounded, all of the Tunisian coast will be captured, and eventually, after a long and excruciating fight, Tunis will fall, and Tunisia will sign out its surrender. Now, for peace treaty, we're actually, gonna be having um mm, let me see if I find like is this a good color? Yeah. For the peace treaty, we are basically, gonna be having the Tunisia. Well, maybe can I find a better color for that? I don't know. Okay, I think this is a good color, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, Tunisia will end up becoming a puppet of Syria. Now, being a puppet, means that basically Syria is like full control like over like the government of Tunisia. Like they pick the leaders, the officials they want. Like it's like they control the country, but at the same time, it's kind of like still an independent country, but but it's controlled by Syria. It is depending on Syria despite being an independent country. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Definitions of puppet state is like really depends on what you consider a puppet state. But for example, Belarus is like literally a puppet state of Russia. Like the only thing that separates them is the border. Like seriously, Russia, they basically control the Belarusian government. Russia used Belarus to invade Ukraine, in 2022. Like Russia, they can just send forces in Belarus to like deal with any opposition that against the Belarusian government. So yeah, that's an example of a puppet state, for example. Mm, I don't know, is there any other definition of puppet states? I mean, it really depends on what you consider, a puppet state. Like, I don't know, you could also make a case that Serbia is a Russian puppet, like maybe more independent of Belarus, but some people say that it's still a puppet. Um, it really depends. Like, maybe you'll say that some of these countries in South America, they're like Russian/like Chinese puppets. Maybe North Korea is like a China, sheer Russian, Chinese. It really depends on what you consider a puppet state. But in this case, in this peace treaty, Tunisia will become a puppet of Syria. And in this case, it's entirely true because I said so. Okay. So yeah. Anyways, now Syria they're gonna do a thing that's like, gonna scare, Israel like a lot. Basically, Syria, they're gonna go into Palestine and say, hey, you wanna join us? Palestine is gonna be sure. And yeah, Israel is just they they don't want to exist anymore. Yeah, but Syria, they're not gonna do that yet. Actually, they're gonna do a pretty interesting thing. They're actually gonna release Cyprus as a puppet because in exchange, Syria will get its first ally, and that is actually Greece. Yeah, that's right. They gained Greece as an ally, and yeah, I think you may actually already know where this is going, right? Yeah, Turkey. Yeah, but but Syrians are smart. Like they know that like if they invade Turkey, like it will cause Balkan War. Azerbaijan may actually get involved. Pakistan and India may get involved. Like both the Western and Eastern world will strongly condemn this. Maybe except Armenia, but I mean it's understandable why Armenia wouldn't condemn such a thing. So we're actually gonna be having like a false flag operation happening here in this part here of Greece, like in this area here, and they will give and that's gonna and then it's gonna give the correct thing the justification to nuclear war on Turkey. And yeah, it's just not yeah. And yeah, even the Balkan countries are gonna condemn this. Azerbaijan they don't really want to be a part of this. Now this could actually improve ties with Israel because I actually read that like mm, Israel they're actually like being allied with like Greece and Cyprus against Turkey because Turkey, I mean, they kind of have something with Israel, but at the same time they're like against Israel. Yeah, the Turkish president when it comes to Israel, it's interesting, because he says one thing, then it basically does the opposite. He does another thing. So yeah, Israel they may actually be in I don't know in favor of this. Anyways, troops here they weren't just Greek troops; they were actually Syrian troops in this border. They're gonna begin invading into this part here, Turkey. Yeah, in Turkey, I don't know. I think Turkey will prioritize this one more because this is like where most of their population is. There's also Istanbul. So yeah, this may actually mean the Syria is gonna have a field day on this area. They're gonna begin crossing, into this area. But there were some Turkish forces, here from the recent annexation of Iraq, so they're gonna begin invading into some parts here of Syria. But I mean, Syria will probably be able to push back. Also, Turkey has to prioritize this one, because this one they may actually be getting close to Turkey. Yeah, I mean, close to Istanbul. So Turkey, they're gonna begin pushing back. But Greece itself is still a pretty strong country with a pretty strong navy. So yeah. Anyways, Syria here is gonna keep invading Turkey. Some Turkish forces will push back, but not by a lot because once again, they need to focus on this area here. So yeah, Syria, they're gonna be able to you like free all, all their country. They're gonna from Turkish forces. So from here, they're gonna begin invading into the area that Turkey next of Iraq. And from here, they're basically gonna be pushing in. There's probably the population that lives here in Turkey is probably really in favor of this. And yeah, I don't really blame them if I'm being honest. And now, what will Armenia want to do? I mean, Armenia is interesting because they actually kind of been normalizing some sort of stuff with Azerbaijan and Turkey. So, I mean, if Armenia gets involved, Azerbaijan will for surely get involved. So, yeah, anyways, now what countries are actually gonna be supporting the jumping here? Turkey now. Ironically, not Israel may actually be kind of supporting that. Maybe actually, like, maybe also Iran. I don't know. Also Syria. So yeah, ironically not. Turkey is basically what unites in the entire world. I mean, the West, they may actually be approving of this. East, I mean, they also may actually be approving of this. So yeah, now both the West and the East are actually like in Syria. And and that's probably a great thing for Syria because it means that for now there isn't really, any risk of like a large scale coalition. But we'll have to see. Like, this is only for now, Syria is getting this support from the entire world. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting nonetheless. Anyways, um, at this point, Syrian forces have reached this area here of Turkey. Turkish forces, they almost push the Greeks out. Seeing the situation how it's getting worse in this country. Yeah, Greek forces are basically gonna re-enter into this area. Yeah, and at this point, Turkey they understand like that. You know, it's better to peace out now because otherwise they don't really stand a chance. They're basically gonna be losing the war. I mean, these countries are probably getting a huge support from a lot of countries. So yeah, Turkey they're actually gonna opt for peace. So yeah, let's go and take a look at this peace treaty. All right, so in this peace treaty, Greece itself they're not like gonna get too much land, but they may still be getting like war reparations, a lot of economic aid from Turkey. Maybe they even get some rights, this trade. Maybe not really this trade, but they definitely get rights or this trade here. Anyways, Syria itself, they're gonna like annex, some areas here of Turkey, including some of the Kurdish areas. The Kurdish population is probably happy about that. Anyway, so yeah, Greece, they are gonna be taking this and here from Turkey. So here, so we have that, and there's here itself. They're gonna like take over land here from all this land here from Turkey. Now, I think that the value that this land has is like it probably has mountains, so it's defensible. You can defend this border kind of easily. You also get some additional coast, but I mean, this was just to kind of like you know say yeah, this is probably just like it was just like say the F word to Turkey. Yeah, it wasn't really about. I mean, they're probably resources, but it wasn't really like for any real benefit at all. If I'm being honest. So yeah, Greece are still gonna be allied with Syria. So yeah, now what can Syria do? Well, Israel was supporting the Japan here, Turkey, and how is Syria gonna repay that? Of course, they're gonna invade Israel, and yeah, I mean, this country will obviously oppose it, but I mean, will the West, really oppose this as well? Considering how the people in these countries doesn't really like what Israel has been doing. Yeah, I don't think anyone is gonna come to the aid of Israel, fortunately. I mean, unfortunately, if you are like an Israeli, but I mean, we'll see what Syria will do to the Israeli population. Yeah, Jerusalem will be captured. You know, Israel they're gonna try to fight back in some areas. Yeah, but eventually it's just a lot cost. I mean, it's gonna take a lot of time to get rid of Israel. But eventually it will happen, and when it happens, the entire world is basically cheering. The entire world is basically happy at what just happened. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely better than like Israel getting a lot of land. So yeah, I guess we're gonna live with that. I will, yeah, I'm not gonna give an opinion on this. But basically, all of Israel, is gonna be annexed into Syria. Yeah, at this point, yeah, Syria are like growing pretty large. I'm not sure what Israel will want to do with Egypt. Like, it may be tempting, like get this area as a whole. But at the same time, attacking such, attacking Turkey. Yeah, I know that Turkey is like more powerful than Egypt, but like Turkey and Syria kind of already had beef, so you kind of expect it, but like expecting Syria, another country to attack Egypt, a fellow country. Egypt didn't really do anything to Syria at all. So yeah, it will probably be more condemned than even actually like Tunisia, Jordan, Iraq. Yeah. Also because well, so Syria may actually want this area, but from the perspective of some other countries, these countries wouldn't really think that like Syria will be really interested in getting this. So it will also come as a surprise if Syria attacks Egypt. But anyway, since Syria invaded Israel, mm, this actually means that Syria may actually get friendlier with Iran. So yeah, Syria and Iran at this point are like uh, improving ties. Yeah, Syria they have the key to the west, and that is Greece. They also have now the key to the east, which is Iran. So yeah, but if I have to pick a side, will Syria choose? At this point, they may actually be choosing the east. To really antagonize the west, by attacking Tunisia, by you know attacking Israel, by attacking Jordan, I mean. Turkey sort of, but at the same time not really, since both the West and East kind of supported that. So yeah, sure they have Greece, which is a Western ally, but still it doesn't really like make up for what Syria has done in these areas. So yeah, now Syria are like really gonna ramp up a lot of their military, but also gonna ask for a lot of support from Greece, for the next war that they're gonna be doing. Mm, So yeah, eventually Syria they will declare war on Saudi Arabia. Now this is huge, but Syria prepared a lot for this. So we immediately have some Syrian forces going out of here and already begin invading into some areas here of Saudi Arabia. They go mostly for the coast, because it's definitely the most important. Now Saudi Arabia will be able to push back in some of these areas, but Syria has fortified their borders, so Saudi forces are unable to invade these areas. But yeah, we are gonna be having like Syria going here from the coast. They're really focusing on this area, but they're gonna eventually retake some of these lands. So with this, Saudi Arabia, they will push back in some of these areas. But at this point, some other countries are gonna join into this. And Greece is supporting Syria, but we're also gonna be hearing another country joining the war on the side of Syria, and that is Iran. Yeah, this is, huge. Iran is gonna open a whole other front. They may actually be more threatening to us for the Saudi capital, which is, Riyadh. We're also gonna be having another country joining to this, which is, Yemen. Yemen, it's an interesting subject. Like government, like it's like I don't know, like it's there, but at the same time, it's not really there. Some people would say like the main government, is like pro Saudi. Some others would say that the government is pro Iranian, but the primary faction, they do control the most valuable area, of Yemen. So, in this case, I'm gonna be putting them on the red team. Yemen, they're gonna try like invade like some of these areas here, but over in the eastern area where like it's less Iranian aligned, Saudi forces are gonna have a field day. They're also gonna go here for the coast. So yeah, Yemen itself may actually fall, but unless at least it will you know distract Saudi Arabia, which is actually huge for and great for Syria and Iran. So yeah, now Iranian forces are also gonna begin pushing into these areas here. Yeah, and now Kuwait is probably really scared, but it's Iraq, not Iraq. So yeah, Kuwait probably can chill out on that. Qatar at this point they may actually be considering joining the war, but if they join that, they're just gonna get jumps. Yeah, they're gonna be waiting for now. Anyways, Syrian forces are not gonna re-enter here into the coast. At this point, they actually are also getting closer to the two holy Muslim cities. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Yemen, they're gonna invade these areas, but Saudi forces are gonna keep pushing into this area here of Yemen. And at this point, Yemen may actually be cooked. Yeah, but Saudi forces they also have to account for the fact that they have to push back all these forces. So they're they're gonna work to push back, but they're Saudi forces don't really manage to push back the Syrian forces on the coast here at whole. Like Syria, they really want to like stick with this coast. At this point, they're gonna like go past the Muslim city. They're gonna actually gonna link up with these Yemeni forces. This Saudi pocket, they're gonna try to fight back, but this point Syria will reinforce this flank. So Yemen, it's gonna be supplied. So eventually, they're gonna slowly but surely gonna be able to push back Saudi forces. At this point, Aryan troops are gonna like go full in, and at this point, they're also gonna invade this area here. Iran and Saudi Arabia also been fighting a lot in the Persian Gulf, so now Iran are also like gonna take their opportunity to make a landing on this area. And at this point, Qatar feels safe enough to join the war on the side of the red team. Yeah, Bahrain is not really happy about this, but I mean, they will get Germany to join, so they're gonna ignore it. Now, Saudi forces kind of expected it, so they push back. But eventually Iranian forces re-push back. At this point, Riyadh is under siege. So yeah, Saudi forces are not really gonna focus on their financial capital. So unfortunately, this pocket, yeah, it's gone now. And this probably means also pulling out forces like out of Yemen. So yeah, but I mean, Saudi forces actually have a great defensive. So Yemeni forces don't really advance too much in the country. But these Saudi forces are like really gonna try to like just spearheads, and cut off some areas. Yeah, this one is basically over for Saudi Arabia. I mean, at this point, yeah, I mean, they can fight back all that they want, but I mean, mm, it's kind of over. I mean, Saudi Arabia may be getting support from the West, but at the same time, Saudi Arabia they kind of be drifting away from the West, kind of closer to Russia, and Russia is allied with Iran. They used to be allied with Syria, but but what Syria has been doing, they're probably going closer again. So yeah, Russia, they're not gonna say anything about what Syria, Iran, and Yemen are doing, and also Qatar. So yeah, Saudi Arabia here is probably screwed. Eventually Riyadh, will be taking over, and from here Saudi Arabia will not really have any choice other than surrender. So yeah, that just happened. So let's go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty. Right, I'm actually gonna leave what Syria will get as the last thing. Now we're first gonna go with Yemen now. Yemen itself, they're actually, gonna be getting some like strategic lands here from Saudi Arabia. They kind of just expand their border north, but they do get some nice coast, to probably like get a more defensible border. Iran itself, they're like gonna go here, and take some more land like Iraq and probably also some like Saudi land. Alright, they're also gonna take over eastern coast, this eastern coast here, which probably also has some good oil. Qatar is also gonna expand into this area here. So yeah, this one Riyadh is pretty close to both Iran and Qatar. Now, what Syria itself will get? Well, Syria itself, they're actually gonna be getting a huge amount of land, like all this land here. So yeah, let's erase the border and see how they will look like on the map. So yeah, Syria, they have established indeed their presence here in the Levant, in the Middle East. Now, Iran, Qatar, and Yemen didn't really join like the Syrian alliance, because Greece, being a Western country, will probably have objected to that, but Syria is still in good terms with these countries, and there really isn't any risk of invasion from these countries. So yeah, what will Syria do next? I mean, they could like try to attack Egypt, but once again, I don't think that Syria will actually be interested in that. They may intervene in Libya to like fix the situation. Yeah, they may go for some of these countries, maybe also like Spain, Italy, but I mean, probably probably Western Europe like try to do a coalition, against mm, against Syria. Oh yeah, now I figure out that Syria actually didn't really get any coalition opposition, and that's for a pretty good reason. Syria itself hasn't really actually done anything wrong at all. Like seriously, when they invaded some certain countries, like they even got support from like both the West and East. And I mean, it's the fact that Syria like never really arrived to like antagonize a lot a certain country. I think that's mostly the reason why in Syria they didn't get jumped by anybody. Instead, they actually like got allied with a pretty good chunk of the Middle East, as well as Greece. And I mean, because like sure, Syria invaded countries, but I mean, no big deal. Like they're not really like doing anything too bad. So I mean, we're just gonna chill out with that. So yeah, maybe I could do an empire video about a certain country forming an empire, and maybe this certain country is a really controversial and polarizing one that will actually get a coalition opposition, but we'll have to wait to see. For now, this is the Syrian Empire video, and I mean Syria, they have once again they definitely become a really great country. At this point the trade, the economy, everything is going well. At this point, Damascus is pretty well protected. And I mean, they really possess a lot of land, a lot of coast, a lot of resources. So yeah, like they're prospering, if I'm being honest. So yeah, I think this was the video on how much I recorded, like, okay, 36 minutes. So yeah, this was, the entire video, about what if Syria formed an empire. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.